আর আমরা চলে এসেছি লাইফে। তো আজকে কি করব ওটাই ভাবছি আমি, কি করা যায়। আজকে আমি একটা ভিডিও শিডিউল করে দিয়েছি, এর মানে কালকে ভিডিওটা আপলোড হয়ে যাবে, কালকে 10টার দিকে আপলোড হয়ে যাবে। যাকে বলে এইবার তো এখন আমি কয়েকটা টিউটোরিয়াল দেখবো। হ্যাঁ, আর হচ্ছে যে একটা কিছু বানানোর চেষ্টা করবো, ওগুলো দেখে। ঠিক আছে, এটাই চলি আমাদের। ঠিক আছে, তো শুরু করা যাক। আশা করছি এতদিন লাইভ স্ট্রিম করার পর আর কোনো সমস্যা হবে না, সব শিখে গেছি আশা করি। গানটা কেমনি লাগে বলো, মিউজিকটা কেমনি লাগে বলো।
Hello everyone.
তো শুরু করা যাক। কি বলছো, কাজ শুরু করে দিই, কাজ ছাড়া কি আছে।
And welcome to Geometry Nodes in 3.0. Today, I'll be teaching you how to make the cell fracture effect and how to dynamically affect those fractures using some simple math. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, let's go and I'll clear the scene and add in a new sphere. The sphere will be the basis for our effect, so let's add that in. We want to add one material, one for the outside, and another material that we'll be using for the inside, just like that. So next up, what we want to do is enable the cell fracture add-on, which is pretty simple. Just go into your user preferences, go into add-ons, type in cell fracture, and you should see it right here, the first option. Make sure
ঠিক আছে, তো শুরু করি কাজটা। হয়ে গেল, বড় বড় যাক। ঠিক আছে, সব দেখা যাচ্ছে, আশা করি সব দেখা যাচ্ছে ঠিকঠাক।
sure this checkbox, which is outside, and another material that we'll be using for the inside, just like that. So next up, what we want to do is enable math. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, let's go and I'll clear the scene and add in a new sphere. The sphere will be the basis for our effect, so let's add that in. We want to add one material, one for the outside, and another material that we'll be using for the inside, just like that. So next up, what we want to do is enable the cell fracture add-on, which is pretty simple. Just go into your user preferences, go into add-ons, type in cell fracture, and you should see it right here, the first option. Make sure this checkbox is clicked, save your preferences, and then what we want to do is go into our search menu and click cell fracture. As we should see, it's in Objects, Quick Effects, Cell Fracture. Let's click that. What we want to do next is set the noise to 1, just like that. The source limit, or the amount of fractures that we'll have, to 200. and offset our material index right here to 1. This will make it so that the outside is one material and the inside is another. So with those settings enabled, if we click OK, we'll see the effect. This will make it so that the and offset our material index right here to 1. This will make it so that the outside is one material.
কি বললো রে, সব বুঝতেই পারছিলাম না।
As we should see, it's in Objects Quick Effects Cell Fracture. Let's click that. What we want to do next is set the noise to 1, just like that. The source limit, or the amount of fractures that we'll have, to 200, and just like that. The source limit, or the amount of fractures that we'll have, to 200.
তো বললো সোর্স লিমিট, তারপর
And offset our material index, the source limit, or the amount of fractures that we'll have, to 200, and offset our material index right here to 1. This will make it so that the outside is one material and the inside is another. So with those settings enabled, if we click OK, we'll see the effect start. As we can see, all the fractures are being calculated and then bound back to the original object. And as we can see, boom, we now have all these fractures right here. And let's make sure that you move the original object away, or in this case, we can just delete it. But yeah, now we have all these fractures, pretty good, that we can affect dynamically. So let's go and move this into another collection. So we have this collection right here. Let's move it into collection 2 and rename this collection to cells. There we go. Now that we have this collection all bundled up, we could go and start our geometry nodes process. Let's add in a new plane and move it over to here and make sure that this is not in the cells collection. I made that mistake before, but make sure that your plane is not in the same collection as the cells. Let's add in a new geometry node and have the input be collection info. Let's add in a new geometry node and have the input be collection info. Let's select the cells collections So if we put that in here, we can see that we now are referencing this collection, but we need to do one thing first. We need to click Separate Children and have this set to Relative. This will make it so that if we move the object, it won't affect the collection, and if we move the collection, it'll respond correctly. So now we could go and hide the original collection so that we only have the geometry nodes version. This will make it so that there's no duplicates and that we can now affect this dynamically. So let's go and input a scale instances node. As the name suggests, this lets us scale the instances just like this. So now we have this effect working, and also just for redundancy's sake, you can also rotate these instances and translate these instances dynamically. So this effect is way more versatile than just scaling. Okay, now let's make an empty just scaling. Okay, now let's make an empty control these parameters. So let's add versatile than just scaling. Okay, now let's make an empty control these parameters. So let's add in an empty right here. Let's move it over here a little bit, and what we want to do is get the distance from our empty, right? Right here. So let's drag and drop our empty into this scene. So let's drag and drop our empty into this scene, set it to relative. I'll drop our empty into this scene is get the distance from our empty right here. So let's drag and drop our empty into this scene, set it to relative. I'll move over this a little bit just so that we can see more of the node editor. What we want to do next to get the distance is add in the position input of the original cells, referencing this collection, add in a vector math node, and set this to distance. So now we're going to hook up the position right here and the location right here. And what this does is give us the proximity from this empty, pretty simply. So let's go and move this over a little bit. And what we want to do next is use a map range node so that
map model, a map range.
we can constrain the distance so that it doesn't just go crazy. So let's use a map range node so that we can constrain the distance so that it doesn't just go crazy. So as we can see here, if we hook this up, crazy. So as we can see here, if we hook this up and then move this around,
wow. Okay. Wow, 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 একটু বড় করে দেখাচ্ছি। Nice. Nice. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's nice.
that it is scaling the instances dynamically. So let's go and set the maximum distance to 2 and the minimum distance to 1. Maybe set the interpolation to smoother step. That just makes it smoother, as the name suggests. So as we can see, as we move this, it is scaling this dynamically. Okay, but what if you want more objects in your scene? You don't want do too many because it could start lagging, but this is fairly energy efficient or computationally efficient. As we can see, this entire process takes less than a millisecond. So yeah, let's add in some more. So let's go and add in a new, let's say a torus right here. Here. Let's increase the radius. This isn't entirely necessary, but just to show how to add more stuff into your collection. Let's move this over to here. Add in our material 1 and material 2. Just to recap. Cell
আমার আওয়াজ আসছে?
filter, all the settings should
আসছে।
still be there, so if we do that, it should build up the cells even more, and then constrain them again. And as we can see, if we were to, let's go and delete the original torus, select all of these ones, make sure you don't select the empty or anything like that. And if we move this into the cells collection, we can see that boom, it is now working. That's basically the entire effect. Again, if you do want to affect the rotation, just copy the smoother step function, set it to rotation, something like that. It'll need some customization and stuff like that, but as you can see, the rotation is happening, and we could turn that up a lot more. There we go. All cool stuff. And also for the translation, similar thing, even though you might need a vector math node at the end of this to control where it's going, rather than just one place. And actually, wait. We could do something cool with this. So if we use the position, this is for the translate, not the rotation. So I'll just delete the rotation for the time being, just for simplicity's sake. So let's add this into there, the position right here. And if we copy the empty's position and then use a mix node, you'll see what happens in a second. We can mix between the original position and the empty position. So if we put that into there and hook that into the translation, let's see. Oh, nope. We need to use a set position node for this. Because if you don't know, the set position node also works with instances. So let's go and put that right over to there, and we can see now that according to the proximity, these will be attracted to the empty's position, which is really cool. But yeah, that's basically the entire effect. There's lots that is possible with this, so I encourage you to experiment with it and try out many wild and different effects.
যাই হোক, এটা মানে আমি তো এখানে জটিল কি বোঝাচ্ছে পুরোটা বুঝতে পারছি না। এই যতগুলো নোট আছে আমি পুরো কপি করছি। হ্যাঁ, এটা একটা খুবই ভালো চ্যানেল আছে, তোমরা যে ব্লেন্ডারের ইফেক্ট এগুলো যদি জানতে চাও, নাম হলো তোমার কার্টেসিয়ান ক্যারি ক্যারামেল কার্টেসিয়ান ক্যারামেল। হ্যাঁ, এর অনেক আগে থেকে নাম এত মানে জটিল রেখে যাতে সহজ, যাই হোক ওইদিককার নাম তো এরকমই হয়, সহজ সাধ্য রাখতো নাম তো। চ্যানেলটাও দেখাই দিচ্ছি তারা, যদি কারো ইন্টারেস্ট থাকে সব ইফেক্টের ব্লেন্ডারের ব্যাপারে, ঠিক আছে? মানে তুমি বেসিক জানো তাহলে সমস্যা হয়ে যাবে, তাহলে সমস্যা হবে। বেসিকের থেকে বেসিকের থেকে একটু বেশি জানতে হবে, ঠিক আছে? না হলে পরে সমস্যা হতে পারে। চ্যানেলটা এই যে দেখালো, এই চ্যানেলটা, এটাতে আমি সাবস্ক্রাইব করে না, কারণ এটা আমার মেন চ্যানেল, মানে মেন অ্যাকাউন্ট না। এখান থেকে তো আমি ইউটিউব দেখি না। এটা হচ্ছে আমার ওই যাকে বলে ইউটিউব চ্যানেলের আছে, তো আমি বাকি আলাদা অ্যাকাউন্ট গুলো থেকে সাবস্ক্রাইব করা আছে চ্যানেলটা। অনেকগুলাই মানে ব্লেন্ডারের যে যারা টিউটোরিয়াল বানায় ওদের সাবস্ক্রাইব করা আছে। আমি বুঝি না এখনো, মানে মোটামুটি যাকে বলে মানে জিওমেট্রি নোডের মোটামুটি অল্প বুঝছি, কিন্তু মানে খুবই মানে বুঝি না, অত অত মাথায় বুদ্ধি নয় যেন কপি করে নিয়ে এদের, ঠিক আছে? আর আমি এখন পর্যন্ত আমার এরকম হয়নি যে কোনো সমস্যা মানে আমি খুঁজেছি আর সেটা পাইনি, ঠিক আছে? মানে ব্লেন্ডারের এত বড় মানে আছে, কমিউনিটি আছে বাইরে, যে মানে যে কোনো সমস্যা পেয়ে যাওয়া, কেউ না কেউ ওটা নিয়ে ভিডিও বানিয়েছে, এত বড় কমিউনিটি আছে বাইরে, ঠিক আছে। না পেলে আমি বাকি চ্যাট জিপিটি তে জিজ্ঞাসা করি, চ্যাট জিপিটি, জেমিনি, ঠিক আছে। জেমিনি তো আমি অতটা ভালোভাবে মনে হয়নি অতটা, মানে চ্যাট জিপিটি মোটামুটি, মোটামুটি আমি বলবো খুব ভালোই না, কিন্তু মোটামুটি ব্যবহার করেছি আমি, ঠিক আছে, মোটামুটি ব্যবহার করা যায়। এইবার তো হয়ে গেল, ওটা ইফেক্টটা তাড়াতাড়ি হয়ে গেল। আচ্ছা, আমি মানে একটা মানে দেখা বলে না, একটা আর একটা ইফেক্ট বানাতে চাইছি, ওটা আমি নিজে থেকে বানাবো, ঠিক আছে। তো তোমরা থাকো আমার সঙ্গে। হুম। আর গানগুলো চালাই দিই একটা একটা করে, গান চলবে। আর আর হচ্ছে গিয়ে ইয়ে চলবে। হ্যাঁ, আমি ট্রাইও করব, টেস্টও করব, ঠিক আছে। আর একসঙ্গে দুটাই চলবে, ঠিক আছে। ব্লেন্ডারটা নিল না কেন রে? ব্লেন্ডার নিচ্ছে না কেন? এই ঝামেলা, এই স্ট্রিমের মধ্যে তো ঝামেলা শুরু হয়ে ভালো লাগে। তো আচ্ছা, এটাকে ডিলিট করে আবার ই করি, উইন্ডো ক্যাপচারটাকে। এবার নেব, সাইজটা ছোট করে যাতে বোঝা যায়। ঠিক আছে না? তো পার্টিকেল ইফেক্ট বানাবো, আর এখানে কিউবটালি এটাকে কলিজনের জন্য এটাকে রাখলাম, এখানে বড় করে দিয়ে এটাকে হাইড করবে পার্টিকেল গুলোর সঙ্গে। কলিজন দিয়ে দিয়েছি। এইবার এটাকে কি করা যায়, পার্টিকেল ইফেক্ট দিব এখানে, ঠিক আছে। পার্টিকেল ইফেক্টের পুরো বডিটাতে দেবো না, এর এই উপরে যে ফেস আছে এটাতেই দেবো। হ্যাঁ, এই উপরের সাইডটা, এখানে এই জায়গাটাতে। হ্যাঁ, এর একটা একটা ভার্টেক্স গ্রুপ বানিয়ে দিতে হবে। নাম কি যেতে পারে, টপ টপ, আর অ্যাসাইন করে দিতে হবে, মানে ওই জায়গা থেকে এইগুলো পার্টিকেল গুলো বের হবে, ঠিক আছে। তো হেয়ার হেয়ার না, আমরা ই করব, এমিটার করব। আর সোর্স 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 কিছু না এখন আপাতত, যেহেতু এক্সপেরিমেন্ট করছি আমরা। রোটেশন থাকবে, ভেলোসিটিও থাকবে, ফিজিক্সও থাকবে। ভার্টেক্স গ্রুপ, ভার্টেক্স ডেনসিটিটা তোমার টপ থেকে আসবে, এখান থেকে। এই কেমনি হয় ইফেক্টটা, আরে হ্যাঁ ये क्या हुआ, চালু হচ্ছে না মানে। কি ব্যাপার রে ভাই, কাজ করছে না আমার, যা আবার নতুন নিতে হবে, ঝামেলা হচ্ছে। আগে নর্মালি একটা পার্টিকেল সেট করি, কাজ করছে। এটা করতে হবে একটা ভার্টেক্স গ্রুপ বানাবো, অ্যাসাইন করবো, নাম দেবো দিন টপ, আর করে দিলাম, পার্টিকেলে চলে আসলাম, টপ। তার উপর থেকে আসছে কি রোটেট করেছে Y90, পুরো তো বডি থেকে আসছে। কি হচ্ছে আমি নিজেও বুঝতে পারছি না। হুম। আয় হ্যাঁ, ক্যামেরাটা খারাপ হলো না তো? কাজ করছে না। আরে ভাই রে, কি সমস্যা! আমি নিজেও বুঝতে পারছি না। ও, কাম হচ্ছে না, কি হলো? আশ্চর্য তো, আশ্চর্য! কাজ হচ্ছে না, কি ব্যাপার? যেটা করতে চাইছি ওটা হচ্ছে না। হুম, কি সমস্যাটা কোথায়? এবার হচ্ছে, কখন কি ঝামেলা হয় কিছু বুঝতে পারেন? এবার আবার হচ্ছে, যেটা করতে চাইছিলাম এটাই বুঝতে পারি না, সফটওয়্যারের মাথা মুন্ডু কিছু জানেন তো, একটা এই ঝামেলা। এরকম উপায় কি আছে কোনো যেখানে পার্টিকেল গুলো কোলিশন করবে, কোলাইড করবে? আর দেখি তো চ্যাট জিপিটি জিজ্ঞাসা করি, এরকম আছে অপশন যেখানে যে পার্টিকেল আছে, পার্টিকেল গুলো এখানে পার্টিকেল গুলো কোলাইড করে না। কোলাইড করা মানে বুঝতে পারলা? কোলাইড করা হচ্ছে তোমার দেখাইছে কনসেপ্টটা আমি বুঝাইছি, কোলিজনের কনসেপ্টটা বুঝাইছি। যারা জানে না, যারা জানেন তো খুব ভালো। এই যে দেখো, এই কিউবটা কোলিজন করছে না আর একটা এর সঙ্গে, কেন? এই আর পার চলে যাচ্ছে, ঠিক আছে? কোলিজন কখন হবে? যখন হচ্ছে একে আমি রিজিড বডি দিব, রিজিড বডি, কিন্তু রিজিড বডিটা হবে স্ট্যাটিক। কোলিজন রিজিড বডি স্ট্যাটিক, এ মানে নড়াচড়া করো না। একে রিজিড বডি দেবো, একে দেবো অ্যাক্টিভ। এবার কোলাইড করবে, ঠিক আছে? তো কোলাইড করলো মানে ই করলো, একটু রোটেট করে দিয়ে একে, মানে ফিজিক্স কাজ করছে এমনি। এই যে হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু আমি রিজিড বডি সরাই দিত আর কোলিজন নাই, সরি এখান থেকে না, রিজিড বডি সরাই দিত, হ্যাঁ, আর কোলাইড করবে না, চলে এলো আর পার চলে গেলো, ঠিক আছে? না কোলিজন বুঝতে পারলো তো? কোলিজন ধাক্কা লাগা মোট কথা, ঠিক আছে? সোজা পাতি ভাষায়। চ্যাট জিপিটি কি বলছে? হ্যাঁ আছে বলছি তো। Usually due to missing or incorrect setting, enable collision of the object. এ ভুল বুঝে নিল। আমি অবজেক্টের সঙ্গে কলিশনের কথা বলিনি, আমি বলছি সেলফ কলিশন, enable particle self collision, সিলেক্ট ইউর ইমিডিয়েট অবজেক্ট, তারপরে কি বলছে? আচ্ছা দেখি তো, দেখি তো, দেখি তো, দেখি তো, দেখি তো, এটাকে বন্ধ করি। আচ্ছা এটাকে বন্ধ করি তো। তারপরে গো টু দা পার্টিকেল প্রপার্টিজ, পার্টিকেল প্রপার্টিজ, প্রপার্টিসে গেলাম। তারপরে তারপরে হচ্ছে গিয়ে ফিজিক্স ট্যাব, ফিজিক্স 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 ট্যাব, তারপরে আন্ডার ফিজিক্স সেলফ কলিজন। ওরে ভাই ফিজিক্সে তো সেলফ কলিজন নাই রে, নাই রে, নাই রে, কিধর রে? চ্যাট জিপিটি কি পাগল টাগল হয়েছে? পাগল হয়ে গেছে? সেলফ কলিজন অপশন নাই, আন্ডার ফিজিক্স ফাইন্ডার সিলেকশন কল সেলফ কলিজন অর জাস্ট কলিজন। আচ্ছা যে হচ্ছে নিজে থেকে বানায় কিছু বলছে ভাই, কি বলেছে? আর একটা এখানে অপশন কি আছে? মাল্টিপ্লাই মাস উইথ ফিজিক্সের এখানে দুটো আছে, মাস ফিজিক্স টাইপ এটা আছে। ইউটিউবে সার্চ করতে হবে। আহ Blender, particle, composition. Blender tutorial লিখে কি আর
I'm trying out Rodin's brand new 3D decomposition feature, and holy cow, this is next level insane.
Yo, what's up again? Today we're doing something like this, and I hope you all had some great holidays and a beautiful start into the new year. What I'm going to show you today is pretty amazing because particle simulations with self-collisions were not possible to do in Blender before, but I found this add-on that's called Molecular Plus add-on, which is a free add-on that is completely OP in my eyes because it makes particle simulations so much more powerful. You can make self-colliding particle simulations, you can make some particle systems that collide with other particle systems, you can add some linking to your particles so they come out as some clumps, you can simulate some relinking when they collide with other particles or other particle systems. So there's so much options to play around with, and let's get started. So download the add-on, and if you want you can donate something to the creator of the add-on. So as you can see, this is my original scene here.
তার নাম কি বললো রে?
My eyes, because
Molecular add-on। আচ্ছা, সার্চ করতে হবে।
In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to make these swirly particle effects in Blender using fluid simulations and a little bit of geometry nodes. This is inspired by Sketchy Visuals Cinema 4D tutorials, and we can try to recreate this in Blender. I'm using Blender 4.5 for this, just for the better performance with high particle count. We can open new Blender scene, and we don't have to delete anything. I'm gonna set up the camera first by resetting the rotation.
করছে এখন না?
Hello everyone and welcome to another Blender Made Easy tutorial. Today we'll be creating this snaking particle animation. The idea for this tutorial is actually from the Rings of Power intro shot right here. I thought it looked pretty cool, so we're going to recreate it in Blender. To do this, we're going to be using the molecular add-on for the particle system. This allows us to interact the particles
Molecular add-on, বাহ। যাই হোক, একটা কাজের অ্যাড-অন
systems
পাইছি
together in
তাহলে।
physics. This add-on is like super cool and it allows you to create so many unique and interesting animations. Definitely check it out in the link in the description. Once you have it downloaded, you can go over to edit, down to your preferences, and then install the add-on right here. Once Once you've done that, type in the search bar molecular, and you should see it right there. Make sure that is enabled, and then also while we're here, let's do the extra mesh objects right here. Make sure that is enabled as well. This is what we're going to be using to create all of the rocks and pebbles. Next up, let's go ahead and delete the default cube, and then press Shift A will add in the rock generator.
দুটা দুটা অ্যাড-অন লাগবে এখানে। দুটো অ্যাড-অন লাগবে। আচ্ছা, যাই হোক, ওটা আমি পরে করছি।
If we open up this panel down here, we can change all the different settings to affect how our rock looks. Since there's going to be a lot of particles, we need to make sure the detail and display level is very low. So make sure both of those are set down to 1.
আরে
And then
কি
also
কি
while
বলে
we're
আর
here, let's do the extra mesh objects right here. Make sure that is
অ্যাড মেশ এক্সট্রা অবজেক্ট, অ্যাড মেশ এক্সট্রা অবজেক্ট। একটা অ্যাড-অন আছে মনে হয় আমার, ডাউনলোড করে নিই। দুটো অ্যাড-অন হয়ে গেল।
is enabled as well. This is what we're going to be using to create all of the rocks and pebbles. Next up, let's go ahead and delete the default cube, and then press Shift A. We'll add in the rock generator. If we open up this panel down here, we can change all the different settings to affect how our rock looks. Since there's going to be a lot of particles, we need to make sure the detail and display
আচ্ছা, আমি কি একাই দেখবো? তোমরাও দেখো, হ্যাঁ? তাহলে আমাকে সেটিংটা একটু চেঞ্জ করতে হবে। সেটিংটা চেঞ্জ করতে হবে, এগুলো তো কপিরাইট না চলে আসবে, ভয় লাগে। ডিলিট করে দেবো ভাই, কপিরাইট আছে। হ্যাঁ?
level is very low. So make sure both of those are set down.
মানে এগুলো তো মানে ইসের মধ্যে পড়ছে, যাকে বলে না ফেয়ার ইউজের মধ্যে। অনেকজন তো পুরো এরকমই চালায়, কেন রিয়াকশন দিয়ে দিয়ে। আশা করছি কোনো হবে না। দেখা যাক।
Mesh objects right here, make sure that is enabled as well. This is what we're going to be using to create all of the rocks and pebbles. Next up, let's go ahead and delete the default cube, and then press Shift A. We'll add in the rock generator. If we open up this panel down here, we can change all the different settings to affect how our rock looks. Since there's going to be a lot of particles, we need to make sure the detail and display level is very low. So make sure both of those are set down to 1. Let's bring up the number of rocks to 4 so we have different variations, and then we can just move them off to the side.
You read that right. Create
How one of the rocks looks, you can delete it and then add in a new rock. For example, I don't really like how this one looks, so I'm going to delete that and then just add in a new rock. We'll open up this panel, we'll set the number of rocks to 1, and if you uncheck use random seed, you can scroll through here until you find something that you like. I think that one looks pretty cool, so we're going to leave it right there and just drag it over this way. We'll select all of them, right click, and shade them smooth. What we're going to be doing is having 2 different collections of rocks, so we can add in different materials to each particle system. So we'll select all of them, press M, and move them to their own collection. We'll call it rocks 1. Then what we can do is select this collection right here, right click, and then click on duplicate collection. We'll call this one rocks 2. With that done, make sure you select your original collection so it doesn't add the other objects to the rock collection. Next, we'll press Shift A and we'll add in the container for all the particles. We'll just add in a cube, and if we go into the dimensions tab over here in the properties by hitting N, we'll set the X and Y to a value of 6, and then the Z will bring this lower to a value of 0.35. If we go into front view, this is what it looks like. That is looking pretty good. We'll drag it onto the grid floor, and then we'll press Shift A and add in a circle. We'll rotate the circle 90 degrees along the X-axis, scale it down until it matches the height of the other container. That looks pretty good, and then we'll drag it over here. Next up, let's create the outline. You can use whatever outline you want. If you want to type in a letter or a logo, use whatever you like. For this tutorial, I'm actually going to be using the Blender logo. So just go into Google and find the Blender logo, and then click and drag an image in. I'm going to go over to the image panel right here and turn down the opacity so it's not as bright, and then I'll scale it up so it matches the box right here. I think that is pretty good. And then also we'll scale down this object so it's a little bit smaller. Something like that is probably good. Now to create the outline, let's add in a curve and then add in a Bezier curve object. Go into edit mode, and then all we really need to do is just start tracing out the logo. So right about here, we're going to move these points right there, select the different points, press E to extrude, rotate, and just place it along the curve going all the way around. Once you get up to this point right here, what we're going to do is actually smooth out the corner, because once we animate the particles following this curve, it's going to be a very harsh transition right on this corner. So instead, we're just going to smooth it out. Select this point, press E to extrude, and make this corner nice and smooth. Something like that is probably good. And then just repeat this for the rest of the corners. And there we go, we've now traced out the logo, so we can go ahead and delete that image. Next up, we'll place our circle right in this position, rotate it, and then place it right about there. Make sure you go into edit mode and press F to fill in a face, and then also make sure this curve is up, so it's right in the middle of the circle. And with this circle, we're going to be using it to create the particle system. Speaking of particles, I've actually created an entire class on that subject over on Skillshare. It's called the Beginner's Guide to the Particle System in Blender. It covers the particle system in an in-depth and easy to understand way. We go over all of the settings, and there's a couple of hands-on projects as well. You should definitely check it out. And since Skillshare is sponsoring this video, you can take this class and thousands of others for name a few. So click the link in the description and get your free month. And while you're there, you should definitely check out my 9 other classes. Select your circle, go over to the particle system tab, and then create a new one by hitting that plus sign. We're going to set the start frame to 50 and the end frame to 500. The reason we're setting it to 50 is so the other particle system, this cube right here, has time to settle before this particle system gets emitted. So 50 and 500 is good. The lifetime controls how fast it's going to go along the curve. And to actually get them to follow, select your curve, go over to the physics panel, enable force field, and set the type over to curve guide. The minimum distance right here controls where it's going to grab the particle system. Make sure this is a little bit lower so it just fills out that circle. With that done, go back over to your circle particle system. We'll set the number to 15,000. That's a good number right there. And now if we play our animation, once it reaches frame 50, you can see they go all the way around. And the lifetime controls how fast it goes around. Let's set this higher so it's slower. We'll go with a value of about 430. I think that is a good number. So once it reaches frame 50, we can see the speed right there. Again, if you want it faster, lower this value. If you want it slower, make this value higher. We're going to go over to the render panel right here, switch it from render as halo to render as collection. And then for the instant collection, we'll select rocks 1. We can see them right there, and that is looking pretty good, but they are all rotated the right way. So let's give it some randomness. Open up the rotation, we'll turn the phase and the random phase all the way up to 1. So now once we restart, it's going to have a lot more random rotation, and that's going to look a lot better. For the scale of this, let's go up to a value of 0.075 and enter, and then the random size will drag up to a value of 0.2, just to give it some variation. Down here in the timeline, let's also set this to 500. Next up, let's add in the collision for the other object, so the particles don't just fall into 3D space. We'll select this cube right here, press Shift D, and then scale it up just slightly so it's bigger, just like that, and then also go into the front view, scale it along the Z so it's a little bit taller, and drag it up right about there. If we go into edit mode, we can delete this top face, so go into face select mode, delete that top face, Then head over to the physics panel, enable collision. We'll set the dampening, which controls the bounces of the particles. We'll drag that to 0.9, and then for the friction, we'll also drag up to around 0.4 or so. And then also one more thing you need to do is press Control A and apply the scale to your object. Do this for the particle system as well. Apply the scale, we'll select the circle, Control A and apply the scale. For this other particle system, select it, head over to the particle system tab, hit the plus sign to create a new one. For the start and end, we'll set both of these values to 1. And if this happens, just restart the timeline and it should fix itself just like that. The lifetime, we're going to go up to 500, so it lasts the entire animation. And then underneath the source, instead of emitting from the faces, we're actually going to emit from the volume. And then underneath this distribution, we're going to switch it over to grid. And then the resolution controls how many particles are going to be. Let's go all the way up to 120. This is going to give us a lot of particles. Underneath the velocity tab, make sure the normal is set to 0 so they don't move at the start of the animation. And then also we'll check the rotation. We'll give it some random phase right here, just like that. And then in the render panel right here, we're going to switch it over to collection. And then for the instant collection, we'll select Rocks 2, which is the other collection. And there we go, that is looking pretty good. You might notice though that our viewport has slowed down quite a bit, so to fix that, just open up the viewport display and set the amount lower while we are working in the viewport. Before we continue on, let's go back over to the circle particle system, and we can see here there's a collision object. Make sure you open up the physics panel. Underneath deflection, you select a different collection, because right now the particles are actually going to collide with this object, which is not what we want. We want it to pass through and just continue on. So for the collision collection, select Rocks 2, which does not have a collision object in it, so nothing is going to collide. Same thing for the force field. Select this particle system here. Underneath the field weights, set the effector collection to something else. Let's just go with Rocks 2 once again. So now this force field is not going to interact with this particle system. For the size of these rocks, we're going to set the random up to 0.2. And then for the scale of them, we're actually going to bring this lower. Once we bake this in, we'll bring the size back up to match this circle particle system. But if we have it at 0.5, the particles are too close together, so they're all going to just fly out. So set the scale of this down to 0.025, and that should be pretty good. If we scroll down here to the molecular tab, we can start to simulate all of the particles. We'll open up the simulate and the density and the collision. So for the start and end frame, it's already good. For the substeps, we're going to go up to 6. This will just give us some more substeps in the animation to give us more accurate simulations. For the density, we're going to switch it over to sand. And then for the collision, make sure you turn on stealth collision and collision with others. So now the particle system will collide with itself, and it will collide with the circle particle system. The friction and dampening values will go up to 0.4 for each of them, and that should be pretty good. Let's go back over to our circle particle system, scroll down to the molecular, we'll turn it on. The density, we'll go with sand, and then make sure you turn on activate collision with others. Since it's going to be using the force field, we don't need to have self-collision, only the collision with others, and then for the friction and damping, we'll go up to 0.4. With that done, we are ready to bake it in. Select your main particle system, go up to the viewport display, and set that back up to 100%. Then we can click on Start Molecular Simulation. If the particle systems fly outwards, that means that the particles are too dense and the size is too big. So lower the size and then start simulating it again. We can see they are not flying outwards, so that is perfect, and now we're going to let this bake out, and then we continue on with this tutorial. Here we can see all of the particles are interacting with each other, and this snaking effect is working perfectly. And there we go, that looks pretty cool. At this point, we're going to scale up the particle system now to match the original. So we'll scroll up here to the render and switch it from 0.3 to, let's go 0.75. What I'm also going to do is underneath the viewport display, I'm going to set it down to 5%, so we can actually move around our viewport a lot smoother and it's not going to lag our scene. There we go. Next up, let's hide some of the other objects. So for this object here, we're going to make sure show emitter is turned off so it doesn't show up in the render. Also, you can turn off show emitter in the viewport as well so you don't see the cube. Next up, let's create the materials. So since we have this particle system right here using the Rocks 1 collection, we'll open up this panel and select one of the rocks. Head over to the shading workspace up at the top here, and now we can create the material. So with the Rocks 1 selected, we'll click on new to create a new material. And what we want to do is actually randomize a lot of these different colors. We can do this using the object info node. So go underneath input and go over to the object info node. We can take the random value and this will randomize a color for each of these different objects. If we plug this into a converter color ramp, we can then control this. So what I'll do is I'll take the random, I'll plug it into the factor, and then the color is going to go into the base color. We also need to apply the same material to the rest of the objects. So I'm going to hold shift and select rock 4, and that will select all the ones in between. I'll press Control L and click on materials. So now you can see all of these have different colors. We can come over here to the color ramp and change it however we like. So what I'm going to do is have the Blender logo in orange color, and then the rocks right here are going to have a blue color. So what I'll do is I'll just select an orange color, something like this, and then here we'll give it a darker orange color, somewhere around here, just to give some random variation. And there we go, that looks pretty nice. You can play around with these colors until you find something that you like. For the other rocks, we're going to select rock 2, and then hold shift, select rock 007, create a new material, Control L, and then link materials. And so now all those will share this exact same material. Again, all we need to do is just add in the object info node, add in a color ramp, and then play around with the color. Plug in the random, and then the color into the base color, and then for the colors, again, we're going to be using a blue color. But you can use whatever colors that you want. Oh, and one more thing, make sure to set the start frame to 50 so you don't render those extra frames as the particle system is settling down. And there we go. At this point, you can just select a render engine, set up some render settings like some ambient occlusion if you're rendering an Eevee, or in cycles, you can add some depth of field, make it look however you like. In my scene right here, I've animated the camera moving around, I've added in some animation for the depth of the field, so it focuses in on certain parts of the mesh as the animation is going on, and it looks really nice. Here is the final result. So there we go. If you create something really cool from this tutorial, I would love to see it, so make sure to send it to me on Instagram at BlenderMadeEasy, and thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. If you guys have other suggestions for tutorials you'd like to see, let me know in the comments down below.
ঠিক আছে, আমাকে ট্রাই করতে হবে। তো তো 1 ঘন্টা হয়ে গেল। আজকে স্ট্রিম এখান পর্যন্তই। জানি না কে দেখবে কি দেখবে না, ভাই যে আছে আছে। তো আমি যেমনি বলেছি ডেইলি স্ট্রিম করব 9টার দিকে, করতে থাকবো। আর আজকের স্ট্রিম এখান পর্যন্তই থাকুক। ঠিক আছে, আপনাদেরকে ধন্যবাদ যে দেখছিল। কেউই তো দেখছিল না। হায় হায় হায়। ঠিক আছে, শুভরাত্রি। আর হচ্ছে গিয়ে কি বলো ওটাকে? তাই বলে মোট কথা। ঠিক আছে।